But Nasima, let's be practical. Let's talk about the future with some practical implications here. The COVID vaccinations are rolling out steadily. There has been some hesitancy, but what can we expect once the numbers start increasing? The people that are, what should company leaders be thinking about? How would they support this?
Yeah, thank you. I actually love that question because I have a very strong opinion about it. And I think, firstly, we must admit this is one tiny little virus that has equalized the entire human species across the entire world. Everything that our panel has said here today about our current risks has always been here. But this pandemic has just amplified our awareness of these risks, and it has moved along a lot faster in its progression. Now, life today definitely moves at a very faster pace than it did 100 years ago, and this is with the help of technology and science. This is the very reason why we can produce vaccines at the rate we can, and we can run things like genome sequencing that helps us identify these new strains that actually pass us, daily. Now, technology is definitely the fastest medium to also spread fear and anxiety, and I want to give you an example. If we look at social media today, everyone is inundated with a lot of negativity around the vaccination process and why you should and shouldn't get vaccinated. And this technology moving as fast as it is confusing our South Africans. Should I or should I not vaccinate? And I think each and every one of us, we've got to have the courage to choose a side and recognize that being unvaccinated is definitely a global risk that we put ourselves in. And the longer we remain unvaccinated, it puts us further away from this elusive 70% herd immunity that we want for South Africa and for all of the other countries as well. But why do we want that, right? So let me give the South African audience today an example of what they're missing out on. I've got family living in the UK, and I've heard of their experience recently as they've hit 63% of their population fully vaccinated. Now, please bear in mind, South Africa is only sitting with 7% of our population vaccinated. And their Prime Minister now has allowed certain parts of their states to actually ease their lockdown measures. And this is incredible. Some areas have even been allowed to go around without wearing masks anymore. And this is what South Africa is missing out on. We're giving up our freedom just because we are scared and have fear and anxiety about vaccination. Now, we must also acknowledge that vaccination rollout globally has definitely been uneven. There's been varied degrees of speed and distribution and lots of disparities there. But unfortunately, the longer we take to vaccinate allows this tiny little virus to mutate into newer strains, and that will affect people who are not vaccinated, and that will affect them more adversely. And just remember, same effects, the more sick people we have, they cannot go to work. If you cannot go to work, you continue to impact the economy. And as the economy doesn't pick up, we get further rises in unemployment. And the tragedy of that is that we're going to continue to lose our loved ones. Now, again, at the very start, when I mentioned if you take the pot, you put the individual in, they're dealing with financial pressures, the loss of loved ones, anxiety, fear. This vicious cycle in mental health and illness is going to continue just because we haven't put in the measures that we can control this with. I must say, Luseka, it's very unlikely that South Africa is going to reach our herd immunity in 2021. And unfortunately, our country will be faced with a fourth and a fifth wave as this virus does mutate. And more of our South Africans can only change that stat by getting vaccinated and in order for us to get to herd immunity. Now, there's a different approach. If you can't get to herd immunity, you've got to come up with containment strategies. And that's the only way we will be able to live with COVID-19 in a largely unvaccinated country. The way I see it for the future, COVID-19 treatment, right? It's envisioned that those who are vaccinated will eventually have to take annual boosters to keep their immunity at bay because the virus obviously continues to mutate. And the likelihood is that for our children, COVID-19 vaccination will become part of their immunization cards. But for our employers today, they've got to consider how do they put COVID-19 screening and vaccination into their health and safety protocols, into their annual screenings, into their medicals, because that all supports the containment strategy that we're going to need to keep this virus at bay. I think as South African citizens, I would challenge each and every person listening in today. You've got to ask yourself, are you prepared to go to work, to live, to be in contact or travel with somebody who's unvaccinated, knowing very well the risk that they pose to you and your loved ones, because you're taking home what they haven't taken in terms of a vaccination. You're taking home their virus. We've got to stop sitting on the fence. We've got to make a decision so that we can get our lives back to the normality that we actually need.